welcome back to Ponderings from Palm Coast. I'm Mark Webb. I really appreciate you stepping by today and following along with me and all the craziness and things that are happening on a daily basis. I could do this 3 times a day and have a different story. But today, I am fortunate enough to have a good friend, Ken Frasier, who has volunteered to come in and share a little bit about what's happening with him. Ken, welcome.
Hey.
I appreciate you coming.
Good to see you.
And I enjoy and look forward to talking and sharing. So as we begin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. Good to be here. Moved here to Palm Coast 2016. I'm a former federal employee. My background is 10 years in the military, which was 6 years in the Air Force, 4 years in the Marines, a small stint as a substitute teacher, then state police in South Carolina. And from the state police, I went to become a Capitol Police officer.
Wow.
Capitol Police officer until 9/11, at which time I became a U.S. Air Marshal.
Wow. Well, there's a lot to talk about there.
A little bit of
Well, I
time
appreciate your
behind the
service.
badge, yes.
Great. So you must have a lot of thoughts and opinions in a variety of areas with what's going on today. Can you touch on a few of the things that are really first of thought of things that are happening right now?
Well, if I have any concern, and one of the big ones is how our government is basically being restructured on the beliefs of one person. Like I said, I did a lot of time with the federal government. That's where I retired from. And I still have a lot of friends that work for the federal government. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people, you hear retirement from federal government and you believe a fat guy sitting behind a desk, overpaid, not working for his check. The reality of it, most federal employees, their average pay is between 60 to maybe 85,000, and you really don't break 100,000 until you've been in 10, 15 years and have moved up into upper management. But in that time, your government has invested a lot of money in your education, training you to do your job, preparing you for what you need to know and what you have to do to serve your country.
So you're worried that the loss of talent and the loss of experience in this fast-paced realignment could affect our services or maybe our security for a long period of time? Is that what you kind of feel?
I am absolutely sure it's going to affect our security and the services that the government provides for everyone, not just Democrats, for everyone.
Right.
And the government is a system that you just can't pull one gear out and keep it running smoothly. Things are there for a reason. You can't just wake up tomorrow morning and say, we don't need so-and-so, because it's a domino effect. For instance, we've heard a lot about USAID. What nobody or people have failed to realize, yes, he went in, shut the tap off, and stopped it. But that grain or food that was going to other parts of the world to build goodwill and trust between us and other countries, those farmers that provided that aid, they're going to be bankrupt. They're going to be hurting. Their families are going to feel that. You literally, on a whim, have not just stopped food from going to countries that needed it, but moving backwards in that domino effect, you've stopped suppliers, laborers on docks, the farmers that provide it, the people that sell the grain to the farmers, the people that work the fields in that farm. So you created a ripple effect just by stopping one thing. It should have been a little more thought out. Right. If there is a reason, or if there's something within a system that's wrong, you address that. If my finger is infecting my whole hand, I don't cut my hand off at the wrist. I address the finger.
Right. So you said you possibly still have friends that are involved, work for government. Have they shared with you what their issues and concerns are? I mean, we're here in Palm Coast. We're in this very odd location geographically between Orlando and between Jacksonville, and news and views and opinions flow wildly, and we're always trying to find people that can speak true to experience, I like to call it, to where people are getting touched. I know we're both veterans. And I know that in my case, and I've shared this with you guys before, my ongoing case right now to upgrade or to raise my benefit packages are frozen. I spoke to the VA down in Daytona last week, and they say they're on it, they're working on it, but they've been told to stop because of personnel transition and changes. So I am being touched. How about you? Do you know anybody or yourself?
I actually, after this started, I received several phone calls from people close to retirement, some that were planning for retirement, and all of a sudden they're receiving letters saying, we're not quite sure your services or talents are going to be needed anymore. And they weren't sure what was going on. And I said, did you address your supervisor? Their supervisor had no idea. And literally, you went to bed, woke up the next morning, opened your email, and realized the financial future of your whole family is up in the air. Plans for the rest of your life, plans for your children's education, plans for your parents based off your retirement, based off your job, was upended. And to put a little caveat on that, some of these very same people who were telling me this were supporters of this administration. They had no idea that they voted for what may be their own demise.
Yeah, I think that's a lesson that is poorly communicated. People aren't sharing, but the stories are increasing daily. I was just reading this morning, in their haste, and I came out of nuclear power military, submarines and things, and I understand the Nuclear Regulatory Committee and the seriousness of our safety and control of this stuff, that they had let go hundreds of people who they then realized were critical to the safety and control of our nuclear power industry and weaponry, and are trying to get them back.
Well,
they can't. They don't know how to reach them.
Given what you're just saying, you let go people that spent a lifetime dedicated to learning their craft, engineers that have spent their lives designing, building, regulating, and monitoring one of the most potentially dangerous sources of energy this country has ever known
Yeah.
on a whim.
Action,
And-
reaction, isn't it?
And how do you replace that? Because this is not a car. This is not going to be a driverless car. Those people have to be there. And you can't train somebody up. It's not like the military. You can train up a foot soldier. From the time you hit Paris Island on those little yellow feet to the time you hit the sand, we can put you with a backpack and a rifle in less than 6 weeks, ready to fight. I cannot put a nuclear engineer
Of course.
in a power plant in 6 weeks in any form or fashion.
Right. But here locally, Flagler Beach, which is where you are, and here in Palm Coast, we have a huge, the average age is around 60. Most of us are retired. A large percentage of us are existing due to social benefits, Social Security, Medicare, federal retirement,
Pensions.
And in talking with a lot of my veteran friends and stuff, I heard a guy the other day says he woke up in the middle of the night sweating, worrying whether his Social Security check was going to come in or not. Now, I understand at that point it's extreme, but it wasn't something they thought about a month ago. It wasn't something they worried about a month ago. And so in your case, coming out of a huge experience and a lot of service to our country, and most of it military or security based, I would curious if you would be comfortable with sharing or talking about this DEI thing that, I was in the Navy for 20 years. It didn't exist in my world because we all were underpaid, overworked, enlisted guys on board ships and things. But I would think in the military service and in your security aspect, especially up in Washington, D.C., I've talked with people recently that said they remember the concept of needing the DEI was because they couldn't find walk-in talented people, and they had a need to raise the bar and bring people in. And so they were aggressively going out to find and generate and build a variety of people from all walks of life to come in and work in police force or security or the FBI or whatever. Has that been your experience?
In every component that I've served in, there has always been a perception of DEI. The reality of DEI, well, first, I would ask people to think or look at what the definition of DEI is. Because I guarantee you can't get 5 people in a room and all of them have the exact same perception or definition for DEI. Now, the reality of it is, in my opinion, is that DEI was a way to give everyone a fair, equitable playing field to get a job. This goes way back. This has been an argument that I've heard from so many people. I grew up in South Carolina, a little small town outside of Charleston. I can remember as a child, because I'm a child of the 60s, hearing arguments about jobs going to people just based on the color of their skin. In theory, affirmative action, which a lot of people equate to DEI, was just a way for people to get jobs that didn't deserve them. It was completely the opposite. It was to make a level playing field so that two people with the exact same qualifications, the same integrity, same moral compass, when looked at for the same job, could remove a bias of skin color. That's all, as an African American and a person of color in this country, all I've ever wanted is when I applied for a job, don't hold the color of my skin against me. Look at the quality of person and the qualifications I have for the job. If I don't qualify for the job, you're not hurting my feelings when you say, hey, we're looking for nuclear engineers and you've got aerospace engineering behind you. Good, not good enough. That's all.
Well, it sounds like you're talking about merit hiring. Hire the best person, which has always been on the forefront and the need of any employer I've ever looked at, to be able to look past those things and hire the best person for the job. So I think it's another one of those catchphrases, noise in the room. You guys have heard me talk about flooding the zone with information, with noise. Gulf of America, flying over the Daytona 500. It's easy to lose sight of the things they're doing in the room next door that nobody knows about. And so that's what I believe is where our focus
should be. It should be.
And pay attention to those things. So
you have to. It was a movie I watched once. It was a golf movie. And this one scene, he was explaining how to make the perfect shot. And in this scene, he said, when you step up to the box to tee, the narrator was like, he's stepping in, he's looking at his shot, he's clearing the field. There's nothing there but him, the field, and the ball. No noise, no other thoughts except the perfect swing. You now are in a situation where you're going to have to clear the field. There's too much noise. They understand that our attention span is too short to encompass everything around you. Even in the military, we're taught in the moment that you're going into battle, you have to have a pinpoint focus on your task. You can't allow anything, anyone, nor environment, personal pain to get in your way and know what your task is. Because everything is a distraction from the truth. And that's what we have to focus on as a people right now. The truth.
And I think that's how we got to where we are today. Because in hindsight, as you shared, and I think we've all shared, none of us, me and everybody else, are prepared for the next news release today or tomorrow. And it's just so overwhelming. So Ken, another thing that I really want to touch on, because I have no other experience than sitting there in shock and awe watching the January 6th attack on our country. And like many, many Americans, it was as real for me as watching the buildings fall in 9/11, because there are certain times and histories that we witness, whether you're standing there and you feel it and you smell it and you know it, and watching it through the television. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that event as a DC police officer, and then the pardoning and what he was thinking and how that felt to you as a police officer that has dedicated their whole life of service.
And thank you very much. Now, just to throw a little curve in there, because being a Navy man, if somebody had said you'd have been in the Army, it might have been on. I was an actual Capitol Police officer. There is a difference between
share
DC
with
police officer who were there and had their backs, and the United States Capitol Police. United States Capitol Police, as a former officer there, I was appalled that any member of our political parties would try to and send a mob of people in what could only be called an insurrection. The Capitol Police officers did an outstanding job given the restraints they have to work with. Capitol Police officers live in a very gray area in restraints to what they can and cannot do. Because I would like you to ask yourself this. If those J6ers, as they're called, had been a foreign force or another country that rolled onto that Capitol and tried to storm the U.S. Capitol, what would the U.S. public would have expected? Excuse my language there. Would have expected. There would have been shots fired. It was amazing to me that they restrained themselves because they were fighting their public. They were fighting us, U.S. citizens. Everyone has the right to be at the Capitol at any given time. It is the people's house. But like your house at home, like every other building in this country, there are rules and regulations. Storming it, destroying it, threatening leaders, and absolutely assaulting law enforcement officers, in no form or fashion could that or should that be tolerated. Those officers were courageous. When I saw that, I could not believe that the American public was whipped up into a fury and sent down there to interrupt our political process. And that's all this was about. They wanted to stop the political process. The officers used all the restraint they could, because legally they could have opened fire. There was the only thing that stopped them, orders from above. And they did everything they could do. For these people to be found, investigated, brought into the legal system, tried, most of them pled guilty, convicted, and then have a political leader pardon them as a law enforcement officer, I'm still trying to understand how you tell me that you are the party of law and order, you support me, you support law enforcement. Every law officer that takes a sworn oath to do his duty right now should be questioning, if I do my duty and the leader of the free world is not happy about it, am I now a criminal, or may I lose my job? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people at the FBI right now that are
Fearful of
wondering.
the same thing.
Yes. And at some point, I'm not sure that this is not going to trickle down to the Capitol Police, because we are now seeing he is carrying out his intent of punishing those that have crossed him or wronged him in his mind.
Well, and my understanding is there is some level of immunity that most police officers have legally in the actions of their work, including the FBI. Similar to the one that was just given to President Trump through our Supreme Court. So I find it interesting that we see fit, and I believe that we should, to tolerate and understand the circumstances of our law enforcement, of which all of us saw how overwhelmed they were and attacked they were. Had they, and unfortunately someone was shot,
Yes.
and yet the police officer who did that in defense was covered by that immunity clause,
Yes.
which you probably know pretty well because you've faced that. Ironically, you realize as a soldier in the Army, you don't have that
You
immunity
don't have that.
clause.
No.
Other than you follow from orders above, but you can be prosecuted if it's deemed that you did something wrong and you
Yes.
took a life by accident. So
The Hague has some rules
Well,
on what you can do
Exactly.
in combat.
So we have a president who, by a commitment he made running for office, and he paroled all of them, even the most violent ones that had maimed and injured and attacked your fellow police force representatives, pled guilty, went to jail, some up to 15 to 17 years, and he pardoned them, and he let them go. And now, what does that say to the person that wants to be a law enforcement person?
Think about it. Think about it. What does it say to FBI? Consider what you're going to have to deal with as a law enforcement officer in the days to come. It's easy enough to try turn this off when you're at home as a person just watching the news. You can just flip that switch and say, I'm done. I've had enough. But when your job is to get in a cruiser with a gun and go out and deal with the public, not only are you worried about, okay, I have to deal with an individual who may be having a medical crisis or emotional crisis or just violent tendencies. And I operate under laws that have been approved by the general public. Now, on top of that, I have to worry, what if I'm arresting somebody that somebody likes? We've been trying to get away from this from the beginning of our country. That's why we have laws. If it says A, B, C, and if B violates it, B goes to jail, that law enforcement officer takes B to jail. Now you can have, if B violates a law, the president can come in and tell you, oh, wait, that's really not something I want you to do. I don't need that much more pressure on my job. My job shouldn't be to interpret how the president feels. My job is to follow the laws that my country has set forth. It's a hard enough job as it is. Now I have to worry about currying favor with my leadership. How is that fair to the people that don't curry favorship? We want it to be a fair playing field. And all law enforcement does is ensure that it's a fair playing field.
Yeah, I don't believe for a moment in anything that he does that he surrounds himself with people that pose various consequences to his decision. And one of the things that really shocked me was the fact that there were police officers that had been injured, were involved in court cases in which the person, one of the J6ers, many of them actually, had pled guilty and went to jail. And then that police officer didn't even get a call to say, hey, that guy you worked so hard for 5 years, we're letting him out. And he has made threats against you, Ken. He's going to come after you, Ken. And several of those law enforcement officers had to go out on their own and get protection orders against these people. Do you believe for a moment that he, President Trump, was considering his actions big enough to realize I release someone out of jail, he now is allowed to buy a gun again because a pardon gives him those rights back, and the policemen who we hire, we put in charge the security of all of the people in that environment, and I'm speaking about the Capitol Police, and we all saw video of our elected representatives laying and cowering and hiding in amongst the benches at their workplace because of this event that was going on. And now the people we've hired, the people we respect, the people that they said hi to every day coming in and out of office are fearful of their lives?
Okay.
What is that like?
We live in a different environment now because everything prior to the current administration, law enforcement always lived under that fear. As a officer with a badge on the street or FBI agent, my job is to pursue the criminal, arrest the criminal, present my evidence and the criminal or the accused, I apologize, the accused to the Justice Department, which would then take it and prosecute the case. When I was a state trooper, I came up under old school.
In South Carolina?
In South Carolina.
Oh, that had to be fun.
Yeah. I came up under the old school troopers. These were the guys that would tell stories about roughing up people. I remember quite a few stories. They would say they'd see a drunk sitting down somewhere. They'd walk up to him, slap him upside the head, and say, "Son, you're too drunk to drive. If I see you in your car later on tonight, you're not going to like me." And that was just commonplace. Mm-hmm. In South Carolina, we were called the road men because we worked the road. We were state troopers, accidents, drunk drivers. That was our bread and butter. Speeders, we were the no mercy crew. We knew, or my boss told me, he said, "Hey, your job is to stop them before they can do any other harm. If you've got them off the road, you've done your job. If they go to court and a jury cuts them loose, that's on the jury. You're going to always have people that's not going to like you because of a badge, and you just live with that." And that has always been a situation that, yes, you could have somebody that's an extreme that, yeah, you caught them, they've done their time and got out, or they were not convicted and held a grudge, they come after you. What's different now is you now have a administration that's making them feel invincible because they have been emboldened by this administration to believe as long as I'm doing it in your behalf, I'm good. Yes, if you're a law enforcement officer and you work the J6er, they feel untouchable because they've sworn an allegiance and an oath to a man.
The J6ers.
The J6ers feel like that, in my opinion. And law enforcement, when the J6ers come, or any organization that feels they've got his back, speaking of the current administration, Mr. Trump, when they come for you, they're not going to know if you voted for Trump or not. They're going to just know you're wearing a badge. Beware. I worry for you.
Do you think that the consequences of this action hurts the security mindset of our police everywhere? The potential that that all this work and effort that person could know someone or be someone. Our own governor here in Florida has the same empowerment that Trump has for federal. He could be emboldened to look in the cases that are out there and see, and I believe he's already started doing that, to possibly parole or release people. That is something that I don't think many police personnel even considered that as being an option.
Absolutely.
All that work for nothing.
Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Money spent.
Oh.
Hey,
oh.
The money. The money spent.
That's a whole. That if the American public knew how much money, let's say, one FBI agent it spends to get a case to the U.S. District Attorney, they would be shocked. But that's money that's well spent, because at the time, if the FBI is involved, this crime is not your average everyday crime.
Right, and I've read articles that have said that with the at the federal level, with the attorney generals and all of that, their conviction rate is well into the 90s, as we saw with the only case against President Trump made it through the entire cycle and was found guilty 34 times. So by undermining that system, we don't know. We have no idea how that is going to end up touch us.
I can tell you one way this one of his decisions is going to touch us. And right here in Florida, the sheriff's associations in the state of Florida has backed this current administration to the hilt. Now, when the current president planned to eliminate half of the FBI, there are about 14,000 agents. He wants to eliminate about 6,000 to 7,000 of them. Sheriff's offices, police offices, city police departments, when they get to an impasse or don't have the resources, they go to the FBI because the FBI has the resources. If you're going to cut the FBI in half, you literally have now cut funds and talent and resources to your own departments. I have yet to hear a sheriff or police chief ever say, oh yeah, I got enough money, I got enough people, I got enough cars. I can handle all the caseload, I'm good to go, don't need anything. It's just the opposites. especially right here in Palm Coast. They are always asking, I need more. I need more. And when it's outside of their purview on a case, they go to the FBI. Where are they going to go now? Or if they do go, how high a priority are they going to have? Because we won't have the agents. Some of the most vile and vicious crimes in this country had the FBI on the case because it got outside of the resources of the community that it worked on. So now you're going to tell me you had a mass murder or a triple homicide in your community, and the resources of bringing an FBI profiler or lab techs or just an agent to come in and help you look at something through fresh eyes is gone with one sweep.
Well, isn't the FBI a link between crimes that go from state to state to state? And with the failure or the lack of support staffing personnel, a crime in Florida by an individual who is then in Alabama and Louisiana, it may be harder to see that linkage that's going on. So it's important, and I'm trying to connect these, I call them sadly, aha moments of how, like with a domino, something you've never thought of that's over on the other side of the country falls. And all of a sudden you're on the phone trying to get help for a sheriff that shows up, and it takes them an hour because of staffing.
Yes.
You've been touched.
You've been touched. Oh, we had, I think everyone here, did you see the child alert yesterday afternoon?
I did.
Yeah, there was a child alert yesterday afternoon. So I don't know the specifics, but I'll give you a loose scenario. Imagine your child taken by someone you don't know, or maybe someone you know. They get in your car. You know how close we are to Georgia. They drive and leave Florida, go to Georgia. Well, the sheriffs here, they're bound by their jurisdiction. This guy's now in Georgia. He might be able to call Georgia, but he doesn't have the resources nor the authority to investigate everything that occurred from them leaving your house here in Palm Coast and them ending up in any other state. But FBI can swoop in and find out everything from the point of origin to the point of destination to build a case to take that person to trial.
Again, we see the little things on the news and we wonder, is that saving us money? It's not about saving us money. The purpose of our government, the purpose of, and I was listening on a fellow podcaster who's out there, and he was applauding the efforts of Doge and Elon as going after and saving us pennies. And the government is huge and the government needs to be cut back. And part of that I do, and I'm always interested in value for your dollar.
Yes.
And auditing and assessments and understanding of those things are critical. They really are. And when I see our president flying over the Super Bowl.
You mean Daytona?
Well, he was at the Super Bowl first.
Oh, that's true.
That's right, and then at Daytona and driving around the racetrack, I'm sorry, I have to question the robbing Peter, getting rid of our FBI agents and all these other people that are providing, sort of like you mentioned, U.S. aid, so that our president can fly around the country and wave at people.
Well, Mark,
No presidents have done that in the past.
where
Not to that extent.
this money he saved, or this money that Doge has magically kept from these agencies, where's it at? Where's it gone? How has that brought down? Oh, I heard this until it drove me crazy. How has that brought down the price of my eggs?
It hasn't brought anything down. I was just reading Air Force, Navy. We know that to operate an Air Force plane is 10 times what a private plane costs.
Right.
And yet,
We're spending.
Trump has had multiple C-17s full of less than 80 immigrants, undocumented immigrants, some of which they haven't even disclosed what their unbelievable, horrendous criminal records are, to fly them to their countries. Did you see the one that they flew to India? 2 refueling stops in the air, 20 hours each way for over $2 million. And there was like, I'm guessing, I think I heard 80 immigrants in this plane.
Okay, so
So
$28,000 on the C-17.
C-17 an hour.
$28,000 an hour. You could have gone and leased a commercial jet for a quarter of that.
Right. Well, and that's what really frustrates me, because in 20, and I have it, you can Google it. I task you, you know how I feel about verifying facts. I ask you to go, and you can see for yourself that in the year 2024, the last year Biden was in office, his agency flew over 400 flights full of undocumented immigrants to other countries on established contracted commercial air at about $8,000 a flight. Interesting, that whole drama with Colombia had everything to do with the planes that were landing, not the action of moving the immigrants.
Optics. The word is optics.
You know,
You
so
want to, if you're trying to portray yourself as I'm going to do what I'm going to do, optics is the word you're looking for.
exactly. So, you know, we've talked about a lot of things, and I really appreciate you bringing your military and your police and your experiences to the table. It's important that we get an opportunity to share our thoughts, our goals, and get you to start to question the things. Ponder. Get out there and ponder those things that are going on, and do not accept them as facts. I'm going to do a future podcast, and I want to talk about critical thinking.
Ooh.
Because we've lost it. We have people that don't care, they don't ask, but that would be for another time. Guys, I thank you so much for coming and visiting us today. Ken, as always, it was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
You've brought a great choice of things for people to think about and wonder, and you're always welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I'll be
All right.
glad to come back anytime.
So, hi guys, I wanted to add a little bit to this episode and bring you up to speed on some things happening here locally, because I need you to ponder some of the things that are happening here in Palm Coast. As most of you are aware, there's this ongoing issue with the water system here in Palm Coast. I attended the meeting, took a bunch of notes. There was a lot of information. Most of it, if you go to the YouTube, you'll see this presentation of more information that you can ever understand. So I want to summarize it a little and maybe give you a direction that I'm feeling strongly about. So basically, it comes down to the city needs about $700 million over the next 8 years to bring our water system, our water plants, sewer plants back up to pristine condition. But the takeaway is Mr. Cole, who runs the facilities for the utility, has a list of about 9 projects that he's really wanting to get done. Some of them are only a couple of $1 million. Some of them are 5 or 6. But there's 3 that are very, very expensive, well into the $200 million. So they're trying to plan a plan to offer 2 bonds, which means we go into debt at the city level. The first one being as early as in a couple of months, that would give us enough money to fix the major issues that we have. The second one would be 2027, 2028. The conversation with the city council came down to Teresa, our vice mayor, is wanting to break it apart and approve the first part and then come back and revisit the second part. The other council members are leaning more towards approving all of it. So my suggestion is to follow Teresa's suggestion, and here's why. We don't know what the financial support is available to City Hall and Palm Coast over the next few years. And what I'm saying is the infrastructure bill that was approved by President Biden and has $1.6 trillion is funding that has been frozen as of today, as of President Trump's actions. Now, there are court cases and other things going on which could change it, but inevitably, and we all know, the concepts, views, people in Washington, D.C. change. This funding was passed and signed into law by Congress, and I don't see Congress removing it completely. So I believe that the money will be available through the federal government to help us with our infrastructure challenges, possibly in the next 18 months to 2 years. And so, yes, we do need to fix some emergency actions on our water system. Yes, we all want good water, and we've already kicked this can as far as we can. So I recommend, and I'm asking for all of us, if you're interested to participate with this upcoming meetings, there's one Tuesday morning, and every Tuesday for the next couple, 3 weeks, they'll be talking about the water system. Go down to City Hall, take your 3 minutes, and share your thoughts and let the city know. Ultimately, these 5 council members, the mayor, vice mayor, Mr. Stevens, and the other 2, are going to vote it, and we're going to be stuck with what they say. But you need to let them know that I believe, as Teresa believes, that we need to do this in smaller elements. And so that's my takeaway. That's what I want to share with you today, to let you know that we need to do this, but we don't need to do all of it now. And so there's a justification and understanding for taking it slow and getting it approved to fix the emergency systems that are in place, which, by the way, we are in violation of, which is part of what you've heard. If you're paying any attention, that the state now understands that we're in violation of something called a consent decree. Basically, in our utility world, Palm Coast owns its own utility, which, by the way, is profitable. We actually make enough profit from the water rates as they are today to pay for all the maintenance and the personnel and the support needed to maintain them. The needs we have are well beyond that now. So the upgrades, the expansion, and those things are occur. So I just wanted to take a brief moment and share with you what's going on. I will try to continue to update you on what's happening at City Hall. I invite you to please participate. It's your city. They take time to listen to all of us, to get down to the meetings. They're either at 9 or at 6, but you can watch them on YouTube live if you want. I have actually volunteered and have gotten people texting me questions while I'm sitting in the room to go up and actually inform them of questions that people are having. So with that, thanks for coming by. I hope you're enjoying these podcasts. I'm enjoying putting them out there, and I'll see you next time.